Thank you so much for joining this lesson. Today we're going to focus on the color joint examination. That is a Kenya High, Alliance High, Lenana School and Alliance Girls. So this is the pre-trial exam 2026. The section 1 of this paper has already been handled. So if you didn't take part in that, I want to refer you to our platform. That is a Shifting Grades Online School. Just peruse through the platform and you shall find a very clear discussion of every question, bit by bit, how each question is supposed to be done, together with alternative workings in some of the questions. So please take your time and check what we said about every question, because now we are progressing to the part 2 of the paper. So as we discuss this, allow me unveil our term 2 programs here. For the candidates that are the scholars, we got them covered. So please enroll for our term 2 schedule here. During the week, from 7:30 to 9 p.m. via Google Meet, we shall be having every Wednesday KCSE mathematics preparations, every Friday KCSE integrated science, then every Sunday evening it shall be KCSE mathematics. Actually, for the KCSE preparation, we even invite the pre-candidates, that is the Form 3s of this year. You are all invited. Our number is on the board. You can reach out using the number on this poster so that you may get to know more about our programs, so that you may get enrolled, so that you may get the best for this year. So if you're a candidate, kindly maximize on the platforms that we are creating. Remember, in the month of August, we shall have the NEC examiners bench. This one is better and bigger. We've never had a program like this, and you shall be the first beneficiaries of the same. So use our contact to also reach out for the same. This one will include everybody, the candidates, the pre-candidates, and also the KCSE candidates. You cannot afford to miss this one. So please take your time and enroll to these ones. Our number is already pinned on the board, 070415 3366. So please enroll to our serious platforms and capitalize on the opportunities. So I want to wish you well, even as we discuss this paper. Feel free to interact on the comment section. Remember to type, "I am learning," if you get something on the presentation. Now back to number 17, which is our first question today. We read it together, then we evaluate the question together. 3 business partners, Eliza, Nekesa, and Tanui, contributed 90,000 Kenya shillings, 130,000 Kenya shillings, and X Kenya shillings, respectively, to start a business. Now, they agreed to put 25% of the profit accrued back to the business each year and set aside 20% of the remaining profit to cater for taxes and insurance. The rest of the profit would be shared among business partners in the ratio of their contribution. At the end of the year, the business realized a profit of 4,800,000 Kenya shillings. Then part A, Roman 1. If Tanui received 960,000 Kenya shillings, how much did he invest in the business? So the amount that he invested in the business is given as X Kenya shillings. And that is now the objective of this first question, to find the value of X. Look at it this way. We are already having the total profits in this year. Therefore, our concern is to say the 25% of the profit will be plowed back to the business. So 25% of 4.8 million, this one is plowed back to the business. So how much is this? 1.2 million, meaning that now there is a balance after plowing a portion to the business. We shall have the difference, which is now going to be 3,600,000 Kenya shillings. This is now the amount that has remained after plowing 25% back to the business. Again, we are told 20% of the remaining profit. So 20% of this remaining profit now. This is what will go to taxes and insurance. Yeah, taxes and insurance, and that is 720,000. So 720,000 Kenya shillings. That one is set aside for taxes and insurance. Then now the rest of the profit is what will be shared by these business partners in the ratios of their contribution. Therefore, we shall say that the amount to be shared now, the balance, the rest to be shared shall be, we had remained with this amount. And now we have picked out 720 for insurance. So what remains for sharing is now what we are supposed to find here. So let me compute that. When you subtract, you'll get 2,880,000. Yeah, that is now the amount that remains for sharing. Let us now discuss the ratios first. We're talking about Elizabeth. We're talking about Nekesa. We're talking about Tanui. These people are contributing 90,000. These people are contributing 130,000 and X. So we can check their respective proportions. So the amount that went to Tanui is already known. So when we take the proportion for Tanui, which is X, out of the total proportions, you see total proportions shall be the amount that was given by Elizabeth and by Nekesa and by Tanui. We add all of them, 90,000 to 130,000. We get 220,000 plus X, which is unknown. So 220,000 plus X. This is the total proportions now. So this one times the amount being shared, we will get the amount that went to Tanui. And they have already given us the figure. The figure is here, 960,000. So that should be equal to 960,000. Then allow me just to have it simplified this way. I know from that point now we can approach it differently to find the value of X. Yeah, we can proceed in a very diverse way and we still find ourselves at the final answer. So allow me have this. Let me have this equals to, I divide both sides by 2,880,000. So 960,000 out of 2,880,000. I get a third. Yeah, so when I divide there, I'm getting a third. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, at this point now, you can allow me to do cross multiplication such that we have 3x, then 220,000 plus x after cross multiplication. This becomes 2x. This is equal to 220,000. So the value of x shall be, when we pick 220 and we divide it by 2, we get 110,000 Kenya shillings. 110,000 Kenya shillings. So that is the amount, that is the value of X, the amount that was given out, or the amount that Tanui contributed in this particular business when they were starting. So can we now say that the exact ratios now shall be here? The exact ratios now shall be here. Eliza, Nekesa, and Tanui. Eliza, Nekesa, Tanui. We're having respectively 90, 130, and 110. 90,000, 130,000, 110,000. So we can now simplify the ratios. You see, a ratio is supposed to be in its simplest form for it to earn a mark. So when you divide through by 10,000, it shall be 9 to 13 to 11. So now the ratios into which they contributed for the business to start can now be given in a simplified way. And that is the answer for Roman 2. So that one is already sorted out. Can we check part B now, ladies and gentlemen? Part B of the same question. We are told that Nekesa invested 30,000 into the business. All right. So that means 30,000 more. Apart from what he had given, now she's adding more of the investment into the business at the start of the second year. Now, given that the gross profit at the end of the second year increased in the ratio 6:5, calculate Nekesa's share of the profit at the end of the second year. This is a very good question, and I want you to follow through. I want you to follow through carefully. So we are saying this, that one, there will be a change in the ratios, because now profits in the business are going to be 90,000, because we are not told that Eliza changed a proportion of contribution. Then Nekesa, who had given 130, now has invested 30 more. That is 160,000, and we are supposed to learn a lot from what Nekesa is doing. Then from there, the amount that was given by Tanui remained. So when we simplify all this by 10,000, the new ratios now are going to be 9, 16, 11. So those are the new ratios. So that is the ratio into which we shall distribute these profits. Now, back to the question again. We thought that the gross profit increased in the ratio 6:5. So 6/5, we make it a fraction, and we multiply the original profit per annum, which is 4.8 million. So we can check the new profit now. We can check the new profit. So the new profit, ladies and gentlemen, shall be 6/5. Then I multiply by 4.8 million. That is 5,760,000. Then now we've known the new profit this particular year. Then they repeat what they did. Remember, they have an agreement of how they are supposed to handle the profits. 25% of this profit shall go back to the business. These are universal instructions. They were not for part A. 35% goes back to the business. 25% of this particular figure, this goes back to the business. That one goes back to the business. So we multiply this by 25/100. We are having a 1,440,000. That way. So this is the amount that has gone back to the business. After that, the balance. What will be the balance here? We subtract 5,760,000. We subtract the amount that has gone back to the business, and we are getting 4 320,000. This is now the amount which has remained after they have set apart 25% of the profit for the business. So now we are saying 20% of this will go to taxes and insurance. So insurance and taxes. Insurance and taxes is 20% of this amount. 20% of this amount. So 20% of this amount is 864,000. That is the amount for taxes. Meaning that now the balance that will now go for sharing, the balance to be sharing, we're calling it the rest to be shared now. The rest now that is to be shared is going to be, we had a balance of 4,320,000. We subtract the amount that has gone to taxes and insurance. So the amount now to be shared proportionally by these particular investors now shall be, according to my computations here, I'm getting exactly 3,456,000. So this is now the amount to be shared by these particular investors in the ratios of their contributions. Then now the exact question is, what are we finding? Calculate Nekesa's share of profit at the end of the second year. So now when Nekesa is getting the profit, we shall consider the new proportions here. We say Eliza, Nekesa, Tanui. So 16 proportions out of a total of how many proportions? You should work out 9. You add 16, you add 11, you get 36 proportions. So 16 over the total proportions times the total amount of profit now being shared. Yeah. So from this now, we shall be able to know how much Nekesa, who is the greatest investor amongst them, got. This lady got 1 million. 536,000. So now this is the amount that Nekesa shall take home at the end of the second year of their business operation. A very good amount of money. If you're getting something and if you're also learning something when it comes to businesses, please type, yes, I am learning. Apart from computing numbers, mathematics is made to open up your minds so that you may see opportunities, so that you may see ideas. When you share profit, don't carry home everything. Do what Nekesa did. She took back 30,000, and that's why she's getting more than 1 million at the end of the second year. So that question is very educative, and I hope we have handled it in the right way. So can we now advance to number 18? Yes. Share to invite somebody to this broadcast. It's a very good presentation that you can't allow a friend or a classmate to be left behind. Joan spent a total of 68,000 Kenya shillings to purchase Y articles to sell in her shop. Now, 4 of the articles were damaged on transit and could not be sold. However, she sold each of the remaining article at 1,600 Kenya shillings more. If she gained 4,800 shillings on the whole transaction, that is our profit now. Part A, write an expression for Part 1, buying price of one article, and number 2, selling price of an article. So how many articles are being purchased? Y articles. How much are they costing in total? 68,000. So each item then shall be the total amount that was spent out of the number of items. That's an expression for the price of one item or one article. Then part 2, selling price of an article. The selling price of an article. What you're supposed to know is that she got a profit. She gained a profit. Therefore, total selling price is going to be 68,000, and we add the profit. So it means the total collections after selling everything, we're going to add 4800, and that is going to be 72,800. So when she sold, that is the amount that was collected. Then now we need the selling price of an article. If after selling, a total of 72,800 was mobilized, and now when this trader was transporting the articles to the business premises, we have a number that got damaged. So we said 4 of the articles were damaged on transit and could not be sold. That means this now was attracted by Y minus 4 items. Yeah, Y minus 4 items. That is it. Y minus 4 items. So that is it. So the selling price of an article now shall be the amount that was received from the selling, that is the total selling price, out of the number of the articles that were sold, which is Y minus 4, because 4 got damaged. So the Y items that were bought could not be sold, all of them. Part B. Now calculate the number of articles she had purchased. In other words, find the value of Y, the original number of articles that had been purchased. Look at this. However, she sold each of the remaining article at 1600 more. 1600 more. So that means we have the buying price, we have the selling price. We are being given an hint that the selling price is higher than the buying price. And by how much is it bigger? 1600. Therefore, when we pick the selling price, which is a unknown, 72,800 out of Y minus 4, when we subtract the buying price, we're supposed to get 1600. Let me put over 1 there. Yeah, 1600. So now this is what we shall be solving now. This is the interpretation that we are supposed to work with until we find the value of Y. So here we go. Allow me use the LCM of the denominators, which is a Y minus 4 into Y, like that. So LCM divided by the first denominator, we shall get Y. So it will be 72,800 by Y minus LCM divided by the second denominator, the Y cancels. So we shall be multiplying it to 6,000 by Y minus 4. This is equal to LCM divided by 1. The LCM remains the way it is. So 1600 into Y squared minus 4Y. I have opened the bracket there, so that we remain with only one bracket. So now we are done with the LCM. We can now simplify the numerator. 72,800Y minus 68Y. Then that becomes a positive. I'm trying to multiply 68,000 by 4. And I get 272,000. This is equal to 1600 Y squared minus 1600 by 4. That gives me 6400 Y. Yeah, 6400 Y. So now we can do a grouping of terms. and simplification here and there so that we may see. When we pick 7,800 and we subtract 68,000, we are getting 4,800. Then again, we add negative 64 should be added on the right hand side. 6400. That gives us a 11,200, the value of y. 11,200, the value of y. So actually we can have it on this side such that we have then it becomes negative here. Yeah, like that. The value of y. What about the constants that have no y? It's just 272,000. So it will be negative also on this side. So that will remain with 0 on this side. Yeah, that too. So the equation is already quadratic and having the right order. So can we make it the most simplified? The most simplified by dividing by 1600 throughout. So when you divide by 1600, this will be y squared minus 1600 divides there. I'm getting exactly 7y minus 272,000 out of 1600. This gives us 170. Yeah, that gives 170. So this is a correct equation, but this is more simplified. Hence, it is more efficient to work it out. You will have a higher accuracy level when executing now this particular equation. So when we have the equation in this format, you know there are many methods that we can use to solve a quadratic equation. There is factorization method, there is the completing square, and there is the quadratic formula, among many other. So if I use the quadratic, not the factorization, I'll have to multiply a times c, and I get 1 times negative 170. Then sum to be the value at this point. Then I'll be talking about negative 17 and 10. Yeah, negative 17 and 10 as the factors. Factors which are multiplied to give negative 170, added to give negative 7. So now we are having y squared minus, we can have minus 17y, then minus 170. You know, we are splitting negative 7 into negative 17 and positive 10y. Then minus 170 equals to 0. When factorizing this, ladies and gentlemen, we factor out y. We remain with y minus 17. Then here we have 10. We remain with y minus 17. This is equal to 0. That is equal to 0. At this point now, we can say inside the brackets we got y minus 17. Outside the brackets there is y plus 10. This is equal to 0. So y minus 17 equals to 0, or y plus 10 equals to 0. So this is positive 17, or y equals to negative 10. Now that we are dealing with a number of items, then we cannot have a negative number of items, and therefore we settle for 17 articles. 17 articles. We cannot have negative number of articles. We cannot have a negative number of articles. Then part C of the same question. Now, if no damage had happened and she sold all the articles at the same price, find the percentage profit. Now we make an assumption that this particular lady called Joanne, assuming no loss that happened, it means she would have sold the 17 items. So 17 items are being sold. 17 items are being sold. And you see, 17 items, we can have now, we can talk about buying price of an item. So buying price of an item would be 68 out of the 17. So an item was bought at how much? 68,000. We divide by the 17 items. So each item costed 4,000, sorry. Each costed 4,000. Then now we are being told, if no damage had happened and she sold all the articles at the same price. Same price means, you see, the remaining ones are going to be sold at, each is being sold at what? 72,800 out of 13 items. So each is being sold at what? Each is being sold at what? 72,800 out of 13. Each is being sold at 56. Each is being sold at 56. Yeah. Each is being sold at 56. Each item is being sold at 56. So now we say 17. Okay. We are saying now selling price of an article is 72,800 out of the 13. So selling price is 56,000. No, 5,600, sorry. 5,600. So now each item had been bought at 4,000. Then assuming no damage had occurred, then we maintain the selling price of an article. Then what would be percentage profit? For us to get percentage profit, then we need to talk about the total amount collected from the selling price. So the actual selling price would have been what? 56,000 per item, selling the 17 of them. Now selling the 17 of them. She would have collected 95,200, meaning that we can get now profit. Profit will be this selling price of 95,200 minus the amount she incurred when purchasing them. So minus 68,000. So the profit that she incurred, profit accrued, should be 27,200. So percentage profit now will be given by profit out of buying price. Profit over the buying price expressed as a percentage. Let me compute that. This is exactly 40%. So Joanne would have gotten a profit of 40%. 40% profit. Don't joke with part C. Just look at the question carefully and follow through what I'm talking about here. Just look at it carefully. Just look at the question carefully. We are talking about if no damage had happened and she sold all the articles at the same price. Selling at the same price means that what she has decided to sell because of the damage remains the same selling price, meaning that dividing 72,800 by 13 that was sold, her selling price was 5,600. So we're saying without the damage, now she maintains this selling price. That means she would attract 95,200 and she spent 68,000 to purchase. meaning that the profit that has been incurred, that has been accrued, that has been realized is 27,200. Now, to get percentage profit, ladies and gentlemen, to get percentage profit, then we shall be talking about the profit out of the buying price expressed as a percentage. We get 40%. Now, if you're getting something on quadratic expressions and equations, type yes, I am learning. We are now advancing to number 19 together. We are advancing to number 19, and I hope we are together. This is on statistics, statistics 1, a very common question on statistical graphs. Yeah, statistical graphs. So let's get to the question and see what they need. We are told that the table below shows the frequency distribution of marks scored by students in a test. Now complete the table with marks in classes there. We got frequencies here. Some frequencies are missing, but all the marks are there, all right? Then we have a frequency density. So we complete the table. What you're supposed to know, ladies and gentlemen, is that frequency density is a quantity that is usually calculated when data is not uniform, when class sizes are not uniform. And this is given by frequency out of class length. Frequency out of class length. So that means anytime that we need frequency density, we will need frequency over class length. And anytime that we need the frequency, then we will have to multiply class length by the frequency density. So these are the two things that we need. Those are the two formula. Okay, it's the same formula, but manipulated differently. We just have to change the subject depending on what you want to compute. For instance, in the first case, you know, for us to get class, we need to work with upper limit 9.5 minus lower limit 4.5. So the first length is exactly 5. Class length is 5 and frequency density is 4. So for us to get frequency, it will be a length of 5 times a frequency density of 4, and that will give us exactly 20. That one is properly filled. We proceed to the next, and we ask ourselves, because the frequency is given, what is the class length? Upper boundary shall be 19.5. Lower boundary is 9.5. The length is 10. Now with a length of 10, to get frequency density, now we need frequency itself, 60, over 10. So we get 6. 6 is our frequency density. What about the second class? The third, that is. In the third class, what will be the class interval? 39.5, that is the upper boundary, of minus 19.5, the lower boundary. This is exactly 20. So we have a frequency of 20. We have a frequency of 20, and we have a frequency density of 3. So frequency is given by 3 times 20, we get 60. Yeah, because we need frequency times, we need length times frequency density, that way. The last class, we can get the class interval first from 49.5, and the lower boundary is 39.5. So we get 10 as our class length. With 10 as our class length, 10 as our class length, and the frequency is 40. So 40 over 10 will give us exactly 4. Yeah, frequency density of 4. So we have filled the table. The table has completely been filled. Now we proceed to the part B of the same. But before we get to part B, allow me emphasize that when class intervals are different, For example, we have talked of interval of 4, an interval of 10, another interval of 20, an interval of 10. Those are irregular intervals. For us to plot what we call histogram, we talk about frequency density, which is given by frequency of the class out of the class length. And therefore, that is why with that knowledge, we were able to say also that if it is the frequency that has to be found, then it is the class length multiplied by the frequency density. So it's a very good setting, and people have to understand that. So can we advance to the part B of the same question? Using the grid below, draw a histogram to represent the above information. Draw a histogram to represent the information. So for us to draw histogram when class intervals are not the same, again, in such a histogram, we plot frequency density against upper class boundaries. Upper class boundaries. So that is what that is what should stick in your mind. Frequency density against upper class boundaries. Now, in case it was the uniform class intervals, we would have just plotted the frequency against upper class boundaries. But when they are not uniform, we plot frequency density against upper boundaries. So which is the first boundary that appears? That is the first boundary, which is a lower boundary, is 4.5. It's a 4.5, yeah. So we can bring that one to the axis here. We can bring that one to the axis here. It becomes our origin, 4.5. So we shall start with the 4.5. Start with 4.5. Then we use intervals of 5, 9.5, 14.5, 19.5. Is it 24.5, 29.5, 34.5, 39.5, 44.5. Then we can have 49.5. 49.5. Can check the last boundary there. Yeah, 49.5, 54.5. Just include another class there. What about a scale for the frequency densities? The highest frequency density is 6. So to use this class as well, we can use intervals of 2 for a unit. From 0, we go to 1, 2, 3. This is a 4, 5, 6, like that. Then now we start our plotting. In the first class, the class starts from a lower boundary of 4.5 to an upper boundary of 9.5, and the frequency density is exactly 4. So allow me to use for the classes, allow me use red. So up to 4. So we do our line here. So that is our first bar for the histogram. Then the next one starts from there, 9.5 all the way to 19.5 with a height of 6. All the way to 19.5 with a height of 6. So the height is 6. Like that. Yeah. like that. So that is the bar. The next bar should start from 19.5. 19.5 all the way to 39.5 with a height of 3. All the way to 39.5, yeah. All the way to 39.5 and the height is 3. The height is 3, like that. That way. Then we get to the next. The other one from 39.5 all the way to 49.5. All the way to 49.5, and the height is 4. The height is 4. So we raise up to 4. Yeah, like that. So now we have all the bars now. This is now the histogram. That is now the histogram representing the data. We plot frequency density against the upper class boundaries. Please master that. Upper class boundaries, and on the vertical axis, we have the frequency densities. So we got it now. We are through. We are having our bars out there. When you get time, you can shade the bars, though that one is a luxury. You don't have to. So from that plotting now, we can check the part B of this question. The part B of this particular question. The part B of the question. We are told using the histogram, underline that, estimate, using the histogram, estimate, Roman 1, the median mark, and hence draw a vertical line to indicate where the median lies. To indicate where the median lies. So in this case, ladies and gentlemen, we're supposed to know that median is the mark. Yeah, these are marks. So the mark that has been scored by the middle student is going to be our median mark. So now we will check the marks that coincide with the middle value. And we're first going to check the total number of students here. You know the frequencies are here. We are having a 20. Let me come up with let me show you here. So I need to come up with the CF, cumulative frequencies. Now with cumulative frequencies like that, with the cumulative frequencies, ladies and gentlemen, it means now we are starting with the first frequency of 20. Second is 80, so we add a 60, so we add there, we get 80. When we add 60 to 80, we get 140. Then we add 140 here, we get 180. So the total frequency is 180. 180. I hope that is clear. Yeah, I hope that is a very, very clear. 180. So now the median student is there. 180 over 2, we get 90. So the middle student is 90. The middle student is 90. Now, if the middle student is 90, then we need the mark which coincides with the 90th student. The 90th student. And we use our graph. It's already here. So I want to take you through step by step until you understand how to use histograms to find median. Histograms to find median. Now we want from the classes that we have here to identify where the 90th one is going to lie. Therefore, from the first class, we have a total frequency of what? You remember frequency density times the width here. Frequency density, which is 4, times the width of 5, will give us the number that lies in this class, and that is 20. So we have 20 of them that lie in the first class. Then from there, we need to talk about the number that lies in the second one, which is 60. Yeah, because 6 times a width of 10. 60 of them are here. So in the first class, we are having 20. In the next, we are having 60. That means from the first class and the second class, we have a total of 80 people. So the 80th person is scoring 19.5. The 80th person is scoring 19.5. The 20th person scored 9.5. The 60th person is scoring 19.5. What about the 90th person? Now, in the next class, we have a fixed height of 3. A fixed height of 3. So we want area. You know, it is the area of the bar that gives the number of people. Area of the bar gives the number of people. So we need a portion of the area because in the second class, we don't need the 60 of them. In the third class, they are 60. They are 60 in the third class. So we don't need the 60 of them. We just need the remaining number, which is 10. Because so far we have 20 and 60. So the number which is 10, for us to get the 90th, that number should be represented by a given area. It should be represented by a given area. And what is that area? So area of 10 is what we need. The area of 10 is what we need, ladies and gentlemen. So 10 as the area will be given by a vertical height of 3 times some width here. We need some length here now, which is unknown. So what is that length that we need? What is that length we need? 10 over 3. We just need 3.33 recurring. 3.3. 3.3 are recurring. That is what we need. So after arriving at 19.5, we need to add 3.33. We just need to add 3.33. So where is the 3.33 units? Where is the 3.33 units? We shall identify that, but allow me to say that the median is going to be from 19.5, we are adding 3.333. So this is 22.83 or 833. So that is now the median. What about now showing that value? So from here, we are adding 3.33 units. And we can say that because it is 5 units inside one big square, and each unit is for 1 unit, then we need 3 units point something. 3 units point. So I can use now this different green. 3 point something, 3.33, not 0.5. Yeah, we just use a vertical height to show the median mark. So that vertical height will represent the median mark. So that is what the median value is. That line will show us the median. The vertical height there will show us the median. Because you discover now there is area for 10 here. The 3.3 and the height of 3 to give us exactly 10. To give us exactly 10. So that is how we identify the median using the histogram. Yeah, using the histogram. Then we show it using a vertical line. So the green vertical line now is what we needed to show us the median. Then we proceed again. We proceed and check the next question. the number of students who scored 29.5 and above. 29.5 and above. So let us check 29.5 and above. So marks that are 29.5 and above are here. You've said number of students is the area of the bar. So from this point, 29.5, from that point, now we can check the area here plus the area in this one. So how many people are in this area and above means now toward the right. That area, the whole of it. In the last bar, the number of people there are 40. So the number of people there are 40. These ones are already 40. What about the number of people in the area that is from 29.5 towards the right? So the height is 3, and here we have 10. So the width here is 10 times 3, the vertical height. So 3 times 10. Then we add the 40 on the other class, such that we have 30 plus 40. And the final answer is 70 students. It is 70 students that scored 29.5 and above. If it was 29.5 and below, we would have worked the area from the vertical height of 29.5 towards now the left because it isn't below. But now that we want and above now, it is the area towards the greater side of marks. Yeah, the side with greater marks. The side with the greater marks. So that is it. If you get something on histogram, plotting histograms that have different class wings, please type, yes, I am learning. A very good question, eh? Very, very good question. Advancing to number 20. Advancing to number 20. So we check number 20 together. Now, using the grid provided below, draw triangle WXY with vertices given there and also its image W prime, X prime, and Y prime, also with vertices given. All right. So the first thing is just plotting a triangle and its image. Triangle and its image. So we start with the first triangle. 1, 3. Coordinate 1, 3 is here. That is W. 4, 4. So 4, 4. X. Then Y. Y is going to be 3, 1. 3, 1. So it's here, 3, 1. That is Y. All right. Let me now complete the diagram for the triangle and its image. Triangle and its image. You can see. Let me connect properly. Now we have the first triangle. We can check the second triangle. The second triangle, coordinate W prime is 6, 8. So 6 are 8. The vertex shall be here, 6, 8. W prime. What about the next one? 5, 5. So 5, 5 should be here. This is where X prime shall be. Then Y prime shall be 8, 6. 8, 6. This is now Y prime. You can now complete to come up with the triangle. Let me show you the triangle now. We join all the vertices. We join all the vertices. We join the vertices together like that. So we are having the two triangles, and that is the assignment. The simple assignment in part A is already performed. So we can proceed now, proceed to part B. In part B, we are told this, to describe fully a single transformation that maps wxy to w prime, x prime, y prime. Let us check. Let us check what is happening there. What has made the first triangle to become the next one? Okay, naturally it looks like a rotation. It looks like a reflection, sorry. But what you should be having in your mind is that the two figures are already congruent. They are equal in size and they are equal in area. The angles are equal, the sides are equal. So meaning that because the area is not tampered with, then it's either reflection, rotation, or a translation. Let us see. Can we connect W to W prime? Yes, W to W prime. W to W prime. Yeah, connected like that. What about X to X prime? We also connect like that. What about Y to Y prime? Y to Y prime. I've connected Y to Y prime, X to X prime, W to W prime. Now you can see we are forming parallel lines. What if we bisect? What if we bisect W to W prime? If we bisect it, let us check. W to W prime. When we bisect, where are we going to pass? So we stand at W, we make an arc. Then standing at the other W, we also make an arc there. We're also supposed to do the same on the lower side, ladies and gentlemen. On the lower side. So we can stand there and we make an arc also. Yeah, or we just identify the middle point here. Identify the middle there. So that we bisect now perpendicularly. So to bisect perpendicularly now means we pass through the center and also through the point that has been identified up there. So allow me to do a straight line. And now you can see the bisector of WW prime is also automatically becoming a bisector for XX prime. It's also becoming a bisector for Y prime. And therefore, we can say that this is a reflection, ladies and gentlemen, a reflection with a mirror line, which is now this bisector, because W is connected to that line and moved to the opposite side an equal distance. The same to X. X to the mirror line, equal distance on the opposite side. The same to Y. To the mirror line, equal distance on the opposite side. Therefore, this is now a reflection. So the transformation can now be described. When we are describing a reflection, we first mention that it is a reflection. It is a reflection. Then we also mention the mirror line. So what is the mirror line? We mention its equation. To mention the equation, allow me find the gradient first, then we find the equation. So the gradient here shall be, we can pick points like 2, 7. This is 2, 7. Another point like 1, 8 up there. So gradient shall be 8 minus 7 out of 1 minus 2. So this is 1 over negative 1, making the gradient negative 1. So we have a gradient of negative 1. The gradient is negative 1. So we can express now gradient of negative 1 to form an equation. So y minus y coordinate, we can use 8 out of x minus the x coordinate, which is 1. So I've used coordinate 1, 8. So here we shall have a cross multiplication to give us y minus 8 equals to negative x plus 1. To remain with y, this is negative x and this is positive 9 because of 1 plus 8. So the mirror line here is having equation y equals to negative x plus 9. Just the normal computation of an equation of a straight line. Just the normal computation of equation of a straight line. So the mirror line now can be stated. Mirror line y equals to negative x plus 9. You cannot describe a reflection if you've not quoted the mirror line. So that one has been done. We proceed now to the next question. Remember, in case we found the bisector of WW prime to be different from XX prime, then we would have thought otherwise. And it would have signaled to us that this is not a reflection. So we start thinking of a rotation whereby the bisectors are different. The bisector of WW prime, the bisector of XX prime, the bisector of YY prime, they would have been different, but meeting at a point. All of them meeting at a point. If they all converge at a point, then it becomes a rotation. And now that particular point where they are meeting becomes the center for the rotation. But in this case, the bisector is just one line, meaning that this is a reflection. A very good question in part B. Can we check part C, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we move to part C. If you're learning something, why don't you type on the comment section that I am learning? And for those who are joining us late, allow me emphasize on our programs here. As we get to the month of August, ladies and gentlemen, we are bringing the mother of all online events that have ever been organized. That is the examiner's bench, the NEC examiner's bench for KCSE and for KCSE. We are mobilizing senior examiners for this program. These are the people that will be talking to you. So you better register. You better book your chance on time. Please book your chance on time. The number is already pinned on the wall, 070415 3366. That is the line that you're supposed to use so that you may reach out and enroll for the program. You can do it on time. You can do it as we near August holiday. It shall be great. That one shall be great. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we have a schedule for the day scholar candidates. Whether you're preparing for KCSE or you're preparing for the KCSE, we got you covered in mathematics and integrated science. So during term 2, during school days actually, from 7:30 to 9 p.m. via Google Meet, we shall have meetings every Wednesday, every Friday, and every Sunday for mathematics, for integrated science, and also mathematics for the Form 4s. For the Form 4 program, ideally invite the pre-candidates, that is the Form 3s, to also enroll to the same program and get to know a few things. Our number is already on the board. You can reach out. You can just reach out. Yeah, just reach out so that you may enroll for this particular program. It is the best. So we shall prepare you and present you to NEC when you are very polished. You don't have to worry anymore. You don't have to worry anymore. This is happening at the convenience of your home, ladies and gentlemen. This one is happening at the convenience of your home via Google Meet. So see you online. Enroll to this particular program. Part C of number 20. Is it number 20? Yeah, part C of number 20. The question says this, on the same axis, draw triangle with double prime, the second image, with the vertices given there. All right. So let us draw. That is the thing we are told to do. The vertices have already been provided. So let us check. Let us check. Let us check the vertices there. 1, -3. 1, -3 is here. That's W second image. Again, we told that X double image is 4, -4. So 4, -4 is here. This is our X double image. Then the Y is a 3, -1. 3, -1. This is where Y shall be double image. So now we can connect these to get the triangle. Let us connect these to get a triangle. X, Y, Z, W, X, Y. Like that. You see, we have done Roman 1. Roman 1 is fully done. So after doing Roman 1, what else are we told to try? What else are we told to try? We also draw the third image, which is the image of the second one. Okay. Under enlargement, scale factor -1.5. Scale factor -1.5. Then the center of the enlargement is -1,1. So first we identify the center of the enlargement, -1,1. Center of enlargement, -1,1. That is the coordinate, which is the center of the enlargement. Then now what we are supposed to do is to ensure that we connect every coordinate to the center. And because the scale factor is negative, then we move to the opposite side. And remember, how many times are we moving? 1.5 times. 1.5 times. Yeah, 1.5 times. Therefore, you will allow me now move in this way. If I connect W to the center, W to the center, you see I've moved through 2 squares. So instead of moving, I'm supposed to move 1.5. So moving once will take me here. That is once on the opposite side, then half the same distance. So 1.5. Remember, if it was -2, we would have moved twice. So 1.5. So once and half the same distance. So that's giving us W triple prime like that. Then we do the same for Y. I connect Y to the center. Then I move, these are how many units? 4 units. So I move 4 units. 4 units, that is once. That is once. Then half means now I move another 2 units. So I've moved 4 units, that is once, and half 2 units. So that becomes our Y. Yeah, that becomes our Y triple prime. Y triple prime like that. Then finally, I'm supposed to move X. Now check what will happen with X. You have to be very careful now at this point. You have to be very careful at this point now because we are moving X to the center. X to the center of the enlargement. Then I move that distance and half. The distance and half. So the same distance, then half that distance. Yeah. So this is where we shall find ourselves now. Yeah, that is where we will find ourselves. So when we move This is where we shall be. That is where we shall be. So that becomes our x. On a Cartesian plane, when you print a paper like this, you will ensure that you are more accurate. But I'm sure at this point, I am doing my best. So now I can come up with the particular triangle, which has been now enlarged. Enlarged now, because this is an enlargement. So we expect it now to be bigger and not congruent. To be bigger and not congruent with the others. That is now the enlargement. So we have enlarged 1.5 times, negative 1.5 times. So that is it now. It has been enlarged. That one has been done. After the enlargement, ladies and gentlemen, what else have we been told to do? What else have we been told to do? We state a pair of triangles which are oppositely congruent, and also another pair that is directly congruent. Before I get to this question, I'll have to give a general remark on this. Opposite congruence, we usually have reflection. So yours is to identify where reflection has been involved. That is opposite congruence. Then for direct congruence, we have to talk about rotation. And we also talk about translation. Yes, like that. Therefore, in the first case, opposite congruence, do we have reflection involved anywhere? Yes. In the first case, it was a reflection, and therefore, the original triangle and the first image, they are oppositely congruent. So W, X, Y, and W, X, Y prime. The original triangle and the first image, they are oppositely congruent because it is a rotation that was involved in the mapping there. Then in the second case, ladies and gentlemen, directly congruent. Directly congruent. Let us check. Directly congruent. Directly congruent. When we talk about direct congruence now, can we check whether there is a place where rotation was involved? Can we check where a rotation here was involved? Or a translation maybe, or translation. Let me check. From the second image, okay, can call this one 1, this one is 2, this one is 3. The mapping of 2 to 3, the mapping of 2 to 3, the mapping of 2 to 3. Could it be a rotation? Let us check. Or could it be a translation? So we can check that. Is it a rotation or is it what you call a translation? We can check from here, from W to the other W. From W to W, we are moving to the left. How many units? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then downwards. So that is -5 to the left. Then downwards, we are moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 downwards. So if it was a translation vector, it would have been -5, -11. So we can check for X. What about X? From X to this other x, we're moving from here. So just 1 unit to the left, that is -1, and downwards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, -9, meaning that it is not a translation. Because if it was a translation, then the vector that maps W to the other W would have been the same to the one that maps X to the other X. And for that reason, it is not a translation. Let's check whether it is a rotation, because I just don't want us to state, the type of congruence just from the blues. I want us to do it practically and faithfully. So allow me change the color to this one. We can connect x to x, using a straight line, x to x like that. Then after connecting x to x, we bisect it. After connecting x to x, we bisect it perpendicularly. 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 So let me bisect it perpendicularly. I can use a color like this one. So I connect and I bisect perpendicularly. Yeah, like that. What about when we do the same for y and y prime? For y and y prime. So let me connect y to y prime. Y to y prime. So I connect y to y prime. Then I bisect the line that connects y to y prime. And it's not just bisecting, but I bisect perpendicularly. A perpendicular bisection. I do a perpendicular bisection. A perpendicular bisection. So let me do that perpendicular bisection. Perpendicular bisection. Perpendicular bisection like that. So you can see the bisectors are different, but the good thing is that they are meeting somewhere. They are different, but they are meeting somewhere. The bisectors are different, but meeting somewhere. So when the bisectors meet somewhere, then we will say that this is a rotation, and we have the center of the rotation. So it means X is connected to that center. Then we move here. Y is connected to the same center. Then we turn. You see? Only that now the center is beyond the provided domain. But now we have confirmed that it is this is a particular rotation. So being a rotation from the second triangle to the third one, then we will say X prime WXY. Sorry, let me give it in the right order. W X Y and W X Y double prime like that. That is a pair of triangles that are directly congruent, because the mapping of one to the other is a rotation that got involved. That it is a rotation that got involved. So it is a very good question. When you talk about a rotation, this is what I just want you to notice. Now, maybe you didn't see that. I'm saying this, the center that we identified here, if we connect X to the center, then we connect it to the other X, you discover there is an angle through which we are turning. And that is 90 in the anti-clockwise. So according to me, it's a positive 90, like that. When you also connect Y to the same, when you connect Y to the same, when you connect Y to the same, and also you connect it to the other Y, then you discover it is the same angle and in the same direction. So that means we are having a rotation of positive 90 about this particular center, about that particular center. So it's a rotation that was involved. This is a very good question, a very, very good question. And it's my hope that you guys have understood the particular question. It is just so we can continue. We can continue now checking. We can continue checking. Number 21. You can get number 21. You can get number 21. If you're learning something, please type I am learning. Type I am learning. Can we check number 21 now? Now the figure below shows a quadrilateral PQRS. PQRS, okay, that is a quadrilateral, a four-sided figure. And a circle passing through the vertices P, Q, and S. As you can see, the circle is passing through those points. Line PS equals to 20, as you can see. PQ equals to 25. QR equals to 8. And QS equals to 17, okay? The angle equals to 90. The angle at R equals to 90. This is a 90 here. Okay, 90 degrees. So we can now check the questions and what they say. Let us check what the questions say. All right. Calculate the size of the angle QPS. QPS. This one. That's our angle. We can only use cosine rule because all the sides of the particular triangle are known. PQS, they are known. So the side opposite will be called small letter P. The side opposite to S, small letter S. The side opposite to Q, small letter Q. So according to the cosine rule, we usually say that when you pick the length P squared, you should get the same as U squared plus S squared minus 2QS, the cosine of the angle at P, which is a capital P in this case. Therefore, P squared is 17 squared equals to Q, which is 20, S 25 squared minus 2 into 20 and 25. Then the cosine of the unknown angle at P. So we can remain with negative, no, this is 2 times 20 times 25. So negative 1,000. Negative 1,000. The cosine of P. Then we pick 17 squared. We subtract 20 squared. And we subtract 25 squared. So this is now negative 736. So how can you remain with the cosine of P. How can you remain with the cosine of P? We divide through by 1,000. 1,000, that is negative, eh? So we get 0.736736, meaning that the P itself now will be given by the cos inverse. The cos inverse of this value, shift cosine, and I'm getting 42.61. 42.61. I've rounded off to the nearest. I've rounded off to the nearest for SF. So the angle here is 42.61. 42.61. That way, 42.61. So that one is done. Part B, we find the radius of the circle correct to 2dp. Now, when we are working out Roman 2, let me use the space here. We usually say that twice radius equals to the sine rule. Twice radius equals to the cosine rule. So, what we need to say is that twice the radius equals to, when you talk about a sine rule, it means using the same triangle now. Actually, the radius, twice the radius of the circle which touches the vertices shall be given by, do we have any part and the angle that are complete? For example, we pick the side that are 17 over sine of the angle that is opposite to that. That way. So to remain with R, we divide by 2 both sides. So to remain with R, we need to talk about 17 out of the 2 now. The 2 now will be at this point, so that we remain with radius and we ensure the 2dp. So 17 divided by 2 sine 42.61. I'm getting radius as 12.56 centimeters, and that is to 2dp. Yeah, to 2dp, according to what they are saying, to 2dp. According to 2dp. According to 2dp. Okay. So we have done part 2. We've done part 2 completely. Then now looking at the part B of this, ladies and gentlemen. Looking at part B, the examiner is telling us to determine the area of the shaded region correct to 3 significant figures. Correct to 3 significant figures. Shaded region. Now, for this particular shaded region, there is one thing that I want us to know. That the shaded region is a part of a triangle. You know, there is a triangle QRS. But now, there is a certain segment here that has been removed. So we deal with that segment now. We deal with that segment. Can we first talk about the chord QS? Chord QS that has produced an angle at P. And P is on the circumference. And the angle at P, the angle at P, ladies and gentlemen, the angle at P was 42.61, meaning that the angle that will be subtended at the center, the angle that shall be subtended at the center here shall be double. It shall be double. So now we talk about 42.61 times 2. The angle is 85.22. 85.22. Then again, the radius has been worked out. We have also worked out the radius here. So if the radius is known, then we can work out now area of the segment here. Area of the segment at that point. Area of the segment at that point can be worked out. Yeah, the area at that point can be worked out. So if we can work out area of the sector minus triangle. So the segment here, the smaller segment here, we need to work it out first. Segment there can be worked out first. So area of this segment, the minor segment is given by sector minus triangle. For sector, we need to work with the angle at the center over 360, then pi r 12 point, the radius is 12.56 r squared minus area of the triangle. For us to get segment, we need sector minus triangle. So the triangle is half radius times the radius again, because they are the two sides, then the sine of 85.22. The sine of 85.22. So let me work out this over 360 times 3.142 multiplied by 12.56 squared. So we have 117.33 minus, for the triangle, 0.5, that's half, multiplied by 12.56 squared, the sine of 85.22. This is 78.60. So for the sector, okay, for the segment, we can estimate it at 117.33 minus 78.6. This is giving us 38.73. 38.73 square centimeters. This is now the minor segment. You know, we had to pick the whole sector minus the triangle, and the triangle is having 12.56. 12.56 is the radius. So half this side, sine of the angle between them. So we have gotten the segment here. So the segment has been found, meaning that now we need the triangle, area of the triangle, QRS. And you see QRS is right angled at R. And if this is S, we have Q here. This is 8, and this is 17. So why can't we get SR? SR shall be 17 squared minus 8 squared, and we pick square root. Then we pick square root. That is exactly 15. If that side is 15, this one, if that side is 15, because of the right angle here, we've applied Pythagoras theorem, then half times 8 times 15. Half, this is now triangle QSR. Is it so? QSR, yeah. We need half times a base of 8 and a height of 15. We are getting 60. So the shaded area, ladies and gentlemen, shall be given by triangle minus the segment. Triangle minus the segment is 73, sorry. 73. So 38.73. This is a 21.27. We've been told to what accuracy? 3SF. So 21.3. 21.3. 21.3 square centimeters. So that is a question that requires a very keen analysis of every value that has been provided. And the examiner has guided us very well. That is why the size of the anchor at P was found, and also the radius of this particular circle was found. So that now you are guided. The anchor at the center here should be double the one at the circumference. So you compute this value times 2. Radius, we found it. So that now we first find the minor segment here. Sector minus triangle. We got the segment. Then now it is that segment which is supposed to be subtracted from triangle QSR. Yeah, from triangle QSR. A very concentrated question. But if you're understanding something, please type on the comment section that I am learning. Type on the comment section that I am learning as we transition together to number 22. Yeah, as we transition together to number 22. So we check 22 together. We are told to find the inverse. We are told to find the inverse of the matrix. We find the inverse of the matrix 28, 15, 24, 9. To find inverse, it means we first find what we call the determinant. The determinant of the matrix is given by product of the elements in the main diagonal, the leading diagonal, the principal diagonal. So product of 28 and 9 minus product of the elements in the other diagonal. The other diagonal is now having 24 and 15. So what are we getting as the determinant? 28 by 9. Then we subtract 24 by 15. I'm getting negative 108. The determinant is 108. Now, after getting the determinant, for us to get the inverse now, we're supposed to first do a rearrangement here. The members of the leading diagonal will exchange their positions such that 9 picks this position and 28 picks this one. Then after that, ladies and gentlemen, now the elements in the other diagonal will just change their sign. If it is a 15, it becomes negative 15. If it is a 24, it becomes a negative 24. Then now after that interchange, now we divide every value by negative 108. Every value by negative 108. So the inverse shall be 9 over 108 with a negative. So it's negative 1 over 12. At this point, it will be 15 over 108. And that is the negative will cancel in that case because it's negative divided by negative. So 5 over 36. At this other point, it's negative 24 and negative 108. Again, we shall have the cancelling of the negative 2 over 9. And lastly here, 28 divided by 108. But now with a negative, negative 7 over 27. 7 over 27. So that is now our inverse. I want to advise people, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to me during this presentation, the next time when you'll be finding the inverse of a matrix, kindly ensure that after this particular division here, you don't come up with decimals unless they are terminating decimals. Terminating decimals like 0.5, 0.25, just terminating decimals that are exact without requiring to round off, so that you deal with actual values. So if they are not terminating decimals, please work with fractions like my case. If it is not a terminating decimal, which can completely be written there, please work with, ensure that you work with the with fractions. Okay, part B. Part B now. We check the question together. We interpret the word problem. Yeah, we interpret the word problem. Then we get to the solution. Yeah, get to the solution. So we told that a school bought 28 bags of maize and 15 bags of beans from a trader for a total of 263,400 Kenya shillings. Then in the following term, the trader increased the cost of a bag of maize by 20% and reduced the cost of a bag of beans by 10%. The school was then able to buy 24 bags, 24 bags of maize and 12 bags of beans for a total of 231,120 Kenya shillings. Taking X to represent the cost of a bag of maize and Y to represent the cost of a bag of beans. Part 1. Form two simplified equations using the information above. So the first equation will be very simple, whereby we'll say bags of maize, X, so 28 times the cost of a bag plus 15 bags, each costing Y. This gives a total of 263,400. That is equation 1. What about equation 2? Now we are saying the cost of a bag of maize. That one was increased by 20%. So a bag of maize now is being able now to buy 24 bags. Yeah, is it so? Yeah, 24 bags. Let us check that. I want you to follow keenly at that point now. There is a 20% reduction, meaning that the cost now is becoming 80. Okay, it's increased 20%. So 120% of the original times how many bags? Times how many bags? 24 bags. So times 24 times 24 bags. Again, there was a reduction of 10% and there was 12 bags of beans. So it became 90% after reduction of the original Y. And now how many bags are being bought? 12 of them. So we can get these values. 120% times 24. 120% times 24. I'm getting a, just a minute. Give me a minute, I compute that. Just give me a minute for that computation. I want to be very precise. I want to be very, very precise and very accurate at the same time. Very accurate. Yeah, so we can check that now. We can now check that. We can check that. Can check that. So at this point, we are talking of you see 24 bags, and each is costing what? Remember, it's not now X. The amount is supposed to be 1.2X. The other one is 9. The other one is look at the other one. The other one is 12. Just look at that. Just look at that. 12 bags, then 0.9, the value of Y. So that now the total cost from this is going to be 231 120 like that. Yeah, 231 120 like that. Yeah. So now with this, can we check whether 1.2 and also 0.9 can divide through? Let us check whether they can divide through. So that will remain with our 24 and also with our 12, or with the 24 and 9. Yeah, actually such a thing. So now this second equation needs a lot of manipulation. I now understand where the secret is. Remember, the first equation is constant. So here we are having 24. Actually, we can have it as 24x. Then 1.2 is the one in the brackets. Then from the second one, we can also have 1.2, the decimal point, then 9y equals to 231 120, like that. So that, to simplify the second equation, we divide it through by 1.2. So that the second equation now becomes 24x plus 9y. This is equal to 231 120. We divide by 1.2. I'm getting 192 600. 192 600. Like that. 192 600. So now this is our second equation. Now when you look at the first equation and the second one, they are now in their simplest forms, and the coefficients matrix that will be extracted here will be the same as the matrix that we dealt with in part A. Therefore, at this point, you really have to be very analytical so that you may see 1.2 is existing. 1.2 exists in the two parts. The first part for X, the second part for Y. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we can now talk about part 2, which says use matrix method to find the cost of 1 bag of maize, 1 bag of beans from the trader initially. The initial values, that means the value of X and Y. So we can now extract a matrix equation here, which is a 28, 15, 28, 15, then 24, 9, XY, the variables. Then now on the constants part, 263, 400, and 192, 600. Like that. This is called the matrix equation. Now, for us to multiply, or for us to work out a matrix equation, we are supposed to pre-multiply. We're supposed to pre-multiply. We're supposed to pre-multiply both sides of the equation. Both sides of the equation by what? By what we call the inverse of the coefficients matrix. By the inverse of the coefficients matrix. So both sides should now be multiplied by the coefficient of this matrix. the inverse of the coefficients matrix. So negative 1 over 2, negative 1 over 12, 5 over 36, 5 over 36, 2 over 9, is it 2 over 9? Yeah, then negative 7 over 27. Like that. Then we also pre-multiply the other side, negative 1 over 12, 5 over 36, 2 over 9, over 27, like that. So now at that point, we can continue and say, when a matrix is multiplied by its own inverse, it becomes the identity matrix. It becomes the identity matrix. So that one has been performed automatically. But on the other side, we're supposed to multiply row times column. So this row times the column here. So we pick negative 1 over 12 into 263,400. Then we add 5 over 36 into 192,600. I'm getting 4800 there. Then on this other side, I'm using 2 over 9 into 263,400 minus 7 over 27 into 192,600. At that point, I'm getting 8600. 8600. So can we say that identity matrix times any matrix, the matrix remains unchanged? In this side now, we are having 4800 and 8600. So now X equals to 4800, Y equals to 8600. These are now the initial prices. Those are the initial prices of a bag of maize and a bag of beans, respectively. Yeah, respectively. So we have solved the matrix using the equation using the matrix method. Then now we can talk of part C, ladies and gentlemen. Now in part C, we're being told that another school bought 30 bags of maize and 20 bags of beans after the price adjustments. Use the matrix method to find the total amount of money the school spent. So it shall be 30 and 20. 30 and 20. Then what about, that is the first matrix, which is just a row matrix. Then we also come up with a matrix of the prices. A matrix of the prices. So the new price shall be, it's 4,800 and it's increasing by 20%. So 120% of this. 120% of 4,800. That became 5760. 5760. So we write 5760 here. Then now, in that column matrix, we also talk about 90%, because this is now reduction, and it was 8600. So a bag of beans now is getting down to what? 90% of 8600. This is 7740. 7740. 7740. Meaning that now we can multiply this row times this column so that we may get the total amount. The total amount shall be 30 by 5760 plus 20 by these. So 30 into 5760 plus 20 into 7740. I'm getting exactly 327,600. So now the total price, or the total amount of money spent by this other school after the price adjustments is going to be 327,700 Kenya shillings. So that is a very, very good question. Thank you so much for following. Please remember to subscribe. Remember also to share so that you may invite a friend to Shifting Grades Online School.